Shalom, ladies, and welcome to week 44 of Coffee and Connection. I'm very excited to be here with all of you. I'm a little stuffed up today. I think it's just a cold, but I have my tea here, and I'm I'm still looking forward to our time together. I For anyone who's in Israel, thank you for thank you for honoring the time difference, and perhaps some of you are catching it on the replay. If it's too early for you, um, things are always a little bit crazy when it's like a different, you know, we're not changing the clocks at the same time. But this year it worked out really nice because there's only 1 week, and and I'm glad that we only have this 1 week where we have to decide, which time to honor. And thank God it worked out to be able to do it for me an hour early today. So I thank my husband for agreeing to be here just in case. But I think, thank God, my little ones are sleeping. So let's just jump into today's topic because it's such an important one. It came up in the Absolutely Feminine group this week, and it's one that is so important because it can cause so much frustration and so much hurt and pain and resentment. And when we can understand it and really look at what's going on and understand what actually is going on, then we can open ourselves up to receive those things that we really want and give our husbands the opportunity to give to us and be able to appreciate and accept and enjoy that connection that comes from the giving and the receiving. So, this topic that we said we're going to talk about today is that question of, why should I have to tell my husband what I want? Shouldn't he just know what I want? Like, if I tell him, doesn't that kind of take away from the fact that if he actually gives it to me, doesn't it like mean less if I asked him for it? And this is such a common issue, right? And I think that we spend a lot of time having these desires, having these things that we'd like, that we want our husbands to do. We can even sometimes say we have expectations of what we think they should do, but we just kind of wait for them to be fulfilled. We wait for them to give it to us. We wait for them to do those things that we want them to do, and they don't do it. And then we get frustrated that they didn't do it. And if we would even say to them, like, I'm so upset that you didn't do X, Y, and Z, right? If we would say, I'm upset at you, they wouldn't even know, like, what are you upset? What did I do? Well, you did something you didn't do, right? And yet, like the second question, we kind of hold ourselves back from telling them, or the third question, we hold ourselves back from even telling them what we want because it feels like, yeah, but then it doesn't count. Then it doesn't count because I told him. So, in order to answer this question, we have to understand a few things. There's a few like pieces to this. And the first thing is recognizing that as much as when I say it, you might be like, yeah, of course, but really, really internalizing this idea that people can't read minds, right? I can't read my husband's mind as much as I like to think sometimes I can. And he can't read my mind. No matter how romantic he is, no matter how emotional he is, no matter how in tune to me he might be, no matter how long I've been married. And one of the things I always find very interesting is when people will say to me, well, I know for sure what my husband's thinking, or of course he should know what I'm thinking. I mean, we've been married for a whole year already, or we've been married for 5 years, we've been married for 20 years. And it's like, it doesn't matter how long you've been married, we can't read each other's minds. And here's something even to consider. This is a whole different topic, but I'm just going to say it because it's so important. So often we think we can read each other's minds because we're so busy thinking we can read each other's minds that we look for evidence that we're right. But, anyways, that's a different topic. Let's go back to this topic. Our husbands, as much as we would like them to, as much as we sometimes actually think that they can't read our minds, which means if we want something, the only way they'll know that we want it is if we tell them, okay? If we don't tell them we want it, they don't know. And when we tell them that we want it, so most of the time they're really happy to know that because they want to do things to bring us joy. They want us to be happy. So they want to be able to do things to contribute to that, right? So telling them what would make us happy, telling them what we want is actually something desirable for men. But here's the thing, okay? And this is really important to understand for like all of these questions together. There's a big difference. And this is important to know for both sides. It's important for his side, it's important for our side, it's important so that we can still feel like we're receiving something and like, oh, what does this count if, if I told him? There's a big difference between being needy and demanding and expecting something and expressing a desire, right? Letting him know something that we want. They're very different, right? If we are needy, if we are coming from a place of, I will be angry at you if you don't give this to me. You're a jerk if you don't do this for me. I can't believe you didn't do this. You didn't buy this. Or if we're coming from a place of, I need you to do this for me because I can't fill myself up on my own. If we're coming from a place of, shoulds, you should do this for me, or you, of course you have to buy this for me, or whatever, of course you have to give me a hug, of course you have to take me out, of course, like there's just, it's like a coming from that should place, then that is not very inspiring to him, right? Because now instead of him having the opportunity to give something that will make you happy, to give you something to bring you joy, now it's coming more from a controlling place. Like you're telling him what to do. And no one wants to be told what to do. And that's when, if he does it, you're going to feel like, well, what does it count? Because I told him to do it, right? If he's only doing it because he doesn't want to because he doesn't want you to be mad, if he's only doing it because he feels he has to, then you have to understand that he's not actually doing it because he wants to. He's doing it because he wants Okay, I'm back. I don't know what happened. It seems that I lost internet for a little bit. But I'm back. Sorry about that. 1 second. I'm just trying to make sure that everyone can see me. Okay, there we go. Now it's saying that my internet is still unstable. You know what? I'm gonna try connecting to another one. Hold on. Oh, you know what? It seems to be an internet problem in general. Okay, so let's see if it's gonna work. Now it seems to be working. Let me just message my husband and tell him, ask him. I'm using your internet. It seems the other one isn't working. So if you could keep your internet near the door, that would be awesome. Thank you. Okay. So there we have a little illustration, right? Um, I could have demanded, Ellie, I need your internet, right? And sometimes that happens, right? But that's it's more in a stressful situation. But when it's like, oh, it would be really great if you could have it by the door, is very different than you have to do this now. You have to do this for me. Because if he's doing it because he has to, and I didn't really give him a choice, then even if I say thank you after, it's like, okay, you say thank you, but like, I didn't feel like I really was given the choice to do it. It wasn't, meaning nobody likes to be told what to do, right? So what we want to do is give the opportunity, express the desire so that our husbands have that information as to what they can do to then give us love, show us they appreciate us, show us that they care. We're giving them information so that then they have that info to use if they so choose, which means that if they do it, of course we can appreciate that. Right? It's not, well, I told him, so what does it matter? No, you gave him the information because remember, he can't read your mind. So you gave him the information and he chose to use that information. He didn't have to, right? He chose to. And that is something that I invite you to receive. Because here's the thing, okay? If our husbands can't read our minds, then the only way they can know what we want is if we tell them. And if when we tell them, we then feel like, well, now it doesn't work if he gives it to me, then we are just shooting both of us in the foot. We're just basically saying, there is no way for me to feel loved. There's no way for you to give to me. There's no way for me to get that joy of feeling cared about, right? We're hurting ourselves when we believe what I would call that limiting belief. The limiting belief that if someone gives me something I asked for, it doesn't count. And the limiting belief that he should just know I want. And here's the very interesting thing. Sometimes I hear women saying things like, well, I don't know what I want. Shouldn't he just know? Right? And that is, just based in romance novels and some romantic thoughts that we may have. Because the reality is that if we don't know what we want, there is no way for him to know what we want. If we're not clear on what we want, then likely what happens is no matter what he gives, we're going to find a reason why it's not good, why it's not what we want. We don't even know what we want. We're not open to it. Then how are we going to receive it? And we definitely can't tell him. And very often we kind of do the middle thing where we know exactly what we want, but we don't tell him. And then we get upset that he doesn't do what we want, right? I hear this also. Read this and seen this so many times, and it frustrates me to no end when somebody will say, my husband asked what for my birthday, right? And I said, I don't care. Whatever you get me, I'll be happy with, right? Because it'll show me that you thought of me. It'll show me that you love me. It'll show me that you care. And then the day of the birthday comes, and the next, and then it's like, what? That's what you got me? What? You got me that? I can't believe you got me that. Right? Like, how could you have thought that was a good gift? And that is an unfair position to put our husbands in. It's an unfair position to put ourselves in. It's only hurting us. Your husband cannot read your minds. And if you know that there's something you want, or if you know that there's a kind of thing that you want, right? You don't have to give them the specifics. You don't have to be controlling about your gifts, but you can express desires like, I would love a hug right now. That's very different than come put your arms in this way and hug me for 10 seconds, right? Because sometimes we'll say hug and our husbands will give us a hug and we'll say, that's what you call a hug, right? Or we'll say, I want you to just listen to me. And when he listens, we say, that's what you listen, a specific way. So it's also really important when we are expressing desire, that we give our husbands the freedom, the space to fulfill on that desire in their way. In their way. Remember that if there's that nobody will ever be able to give us exactly what we want because they're not us, right? So if there's something that you know very specifically that you want, I always say just get that for yourself, right? So that you can be open to what he gives. And if the question here is, what if their way doesn't feel good to me? So you want to look at two things. Number one is, why does what he wants to give not feel good to you? Is it a certain expectation that you have about what he should be giving? Is it certain beliefs about how it should be? Can you open yourself up to receive what it is that he wants to give? And often the other side, it can also be that it doesn't feel good because there's something else that we're not getting, right? Sometimes it comes from a scarcity mindset. If you give me this, but I really want that, then I don't want to receive this. I don't want this because I wanted that. And I want you to give me that. And we have this fear that if we get this, then we won't get that, right? And this is why the first part of what we talked about is so important, where if there's something that we want and it's would really bring us joy and it's something that we think about when they give us in their way, to express it, to share it. Yes, it's vulnerable. That's okay, right? So here, what, for example, about a certain kind of hug, I would invite you to, number one, look to appreciate and enjoy that hug as that he gives. And then also sometimes express a desire for another kind of hug, right? Or, say, or when he gives the kind of hug you like, say, "Ooh, I really love that hug. Those are the hugs I really love." Right? And so it's really so much of this is communication and recognizing that communication is not a bad thing. It's not bad to communicate about what we want. That's how we will be able to make it possible, and to be careful about how we're communicating it, to communicate it in a way of desire and being vulnerable instead of making demands or being controlling, right? And then appreciation, being able to say thank you and really not just saying it, but feeling that appreciation. Yes, even though you asked for it, because you asked for it, right? Doesn't that even show so much more that he cares when you say, "I'd really love chocolate today." And he comes home with chocolate. He listened to you. He cared. He could have said no. He could have said, I didn't feel like giving you chocolate today. Or what? You want chocolate? You don't want to eat chocolate? Or he could have said, I'm too busy. Right? So this is like someone said, I needed to hear this today. It's an amazing, it's amazing how much this comes up in our lives, how much we desire, but we don't allow ourselves to express it. And then it holds us back from feeling the love that is there, right? That we're being given to, but it's not what I really wanted. And what I really want, I won't express. And it's that vicious cycle that then I can't be open to receiving what's being given because I'm not getting what I want, right? And here, getting another question, I would like him to make me feel loved. So that is it's a beautiful desire. And what I would invite you to think of it as, first of all, see if you could phrase that without the you, right? Without him. So how about, I would like to feel loved. I would like to feel loved. I would love to feel loved. And then ask yourself a few questions, okay? And you're saying, yes, I have to ask for a hug, that I tell him how much it means to me, and that's great. It's okay. That's exactly what we're saying here. It's okay to ask for the hug. There's nothing wrong with asking for the hug, right? If you're asking for the hug and he's giving it to you, he's showing you he loves you. And can you receive that as an expression of his love instead of feeling like it doesn't count because you asked for it, right? So that's exactly the idea. And when there's something that you want that he, like, I want to feel loved, right? To look for, first of all, also how you can, right? I think this, we did one on this once. It's a great topic to look for how can I love myself? How can I give love? And how am I being given love that I may not be noticing, that I may not be open to? For example, recognizing that when he gives me that hug, it is a sign of his love, right? So that's exactly it, right? And letting ourselves, giving ourselves permission to receive what we have, to ask for and receive the love that's being given, right? And when you're saying, so you're saying here is only the expression of love that he shows, I appreciate it. And I invite you to look for more. Look for more expressions of love. Okay. This definitely goes into the topic of like the love languages and stuff like that, which is basically about realizing that different people give love in different ways. So we may have the way that we want to receive love, that we want to be given love, so we could ask for that. I would love to get a gift. I'd love a hug. I'd love some help with the dishes. I'd love to spend some time together. I'd love, I think that was all of them. Oh, I'd love to be appreciated, right? You could say that. I would love that. And we could also look to see what is being given that perhaps we're not receiving because it's not our dialect, it's not our language, so we don't even notice it. So that's the other side of other side of receiving what it is that we want, to make sure that we're open to receiving his way of giving, his way of expressing what it is that we're sharing our desire for. So there's a lot of pieces here. It's a really important topic, and I invite you to share any ahas or any follow-up questions that you may have on this topic. I invite you all also, if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask, that you would like to be discussed on future Coffee and Connections, you can always go ahead and email them to me, and I will be happy to incorporate them as I can. So I want to wish you all a great day, a great night wherever you are. I can't wait to see you next week. And until then, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.